Hi, this is Johnny Stronati and you're checking out a first look video for ADSR. Make sure you get yourself subscribed to the ADSR YouTube channel and follow on social media. So in this first look video we're going to be checking out Bengal by Max for Cats, a Max for Live instrument for Ableton Live. You need Ableton Live 9.5 or above to run it, and you need Max for Live. So Max for Live comes bundled with Live Suite. If you're in Live Standard, you will need to buy it additionally or upgrade. And if you're in Live Intro, unfortunately you can't use Max for Live. So briefly, just explain Max for Live for people who are not familiar. It's Max for Live runs inside Ableton Live. It's a program that people can build their own instruments, MIDI effects, audio effects to use inside Live. And then you have developers like Max for Cats who have built various instruments from Max for Live. So they put together Ocelot, if you're familiar with that, and they just released this Bengal synthesizer. So yeah, Max for Live, you can build your own instruments. If you use Reactor and you're familiar with the way that in Reactor you can build your own instruments and what have you, it's a similar thing, Max for Live. So there's a bit of the programming going on there in that editor. And open up the synth again here. So they put together this synth Bengal, a semi-modular FM synthesizer, and essentially split into two sections. We've got this grey section up here. This is the FM synthesizer and some of this stuff as well, this algorithm section as well. And then we've got this semi-modular section here where we can start patching stuff together. So I've only had this synthesizer a few days, and if you're brand new to synthesis you might find it a little bit overwhelming, but it's really cool and can do some really cool stuff. But it's just getting your head round the FM synthesis architecture and the semi-modular setup here. And what was quite new to me, I've not used many even software modular synthesizers like Bazille. I've only ever sort of touched on and whatnot, and so some of this stuff, the patching down here was quite new. I'm having a lot of fun just designing sounds using this patching section here. But also these modulators here, the lag, scale and math, I wasn't too familiar with those, so I'm still getting used to some of that. But let's have a dive around the synth and have a look at some of the stuff that it can do. And probably a good place to start is by diving around some of the presets. So you can access Max for Live here in your categories, and you go for Max Instrument, and there's Bengal, and there's the presets, or down here Pacts, and you have in Bengal by Max for Cats, and you have your various different categories of presets. And diving around some of these is quite interesting really, because some of them are quite sort of familiar type of tones. That sort of FM tone I was quite familiar with from using FM8 and also Operator, and so you've got some kind of classic stuff, FM Bell, classic FM type sounds, some effects, just a little bit more out there kind of sounds, a real variety of stuff in here. And I noticed, like say in this synth rhythmic, like this pop electronic preset, it's a rhythmic one. I think you have to be playing back in your host DAW. It plays the sequence. To me that sounds really warm and quite analog, so I was quite impressed with the variation of sound on offer with some of these presets. And some of these ambient and evolving ones are pretty interesting. Also, it's a good way to see some of the routing to figure out how some of this stuff has been put together. So yeah, some really interesting presets. Let's maybe get the default patch back up. And so we start with the default patch. It's got a simple sine wave. And so what we have in Bengal, we have 4 operators. We'll create our sound in here, and and we can start using this algorithm down here for the FM synthesis aspect of modulating waveforms. So you start with a simple sine wave, and you got some various controls on your operator, the coarse tune. So you're familiar with FM synthesis. You need to double this ratio here to take it up an octave there. So you need to go from 1 to 2.0, 1.0 to 2.0 to double the up, go up one octave, or halve it to go down an octave. And you can take the coarse tune right up here. You're familiar with FM8 operator FM synthesis, you'll be familiar with that architecture for the operator. You've also got this fine tune here. You can go plus or minus 12 semitones. You can also set a fixed frequency here. So regardless of note pitch, it's just going to play back the same frequency here, regardless of what key you're pressing on the keyboard. So this becomes quite useful when you're doing some modulation and what have you. And then you've got your waveform section here. So you start off with a simple sine. You can also have saw, triangle, square, some pulse variations. You can also, you've got 20 harmonics. You can just click and start drawing in extra harmonics, creating your own waveform. And you can edit the harmonic level and just add or get rid of harmonics, which is quite nice. It just resets if you click on one of those. Resets to like a saw or a sine wave or something. Or then you can go to partials, and you've got a variety of different wavetables to choose from that, looking at some of the names. Juno 60, TB, solid saw. Like the wavetables taken from analog hardware. And so this really nice option, you can just get these nice wavetables in there. It's not a wavetable synthesizer in the sense of you being able to modulate or scan through the wavetable, but you can load those wavetables in there. And what's really cool is you can actually just load in your own wavetables. So I've got up here, say, the serum wavetables here. So I can just load one of these, get like monster wavetable, and just drag it and drop it, and I've loaded that wavetable right into Bengal there, and then I can start doing all this semi-modular FM synthesis stuff using a wavetable from Serum, or just create your own wavetable and just drag and drop it in there. And I think that's a really nice feature. I think that's going to be quite a popular feature, really, because you can start getting some really unique tones in that way. You have a feedback control up here as well, which routes the operator back into itself. Also affects the pitch too. And then you've got your envelope section for your operator, and ADSR envelope. You can affect the curves of the attack and release using this control. It's quite hard to see on the graphic, but you can actually edit the curves there, and you can also loop your envelope as well. Using that loop button. Which is nice little feature. And let's just discuss this algorithm a bit as well, because these little arrows tell you how the routing is set up between the four operators. So 4 is routing into 3 here, and then routing into 2, and then into 1, and then 1 is the carrier waveform. These 3 are the modulators. You won't hear anything because the levels are down, but turn that up and then you're starting to modulate. And you also get this index control as well, and I think that increases modulation. And then you've got various different settings that are just all going to provide different tones because it's different levels of modulation. Say like with this, quite self-explanatory really, but this, all 4 operators are just routing straight through, so nothing's modulating here, but here everything's been modulated in a line, or say here 4 is modulating 3, 2 is modulating 1. It's all going to produce quite different tones. It's good to start experimenting with all of that stuff. Let's load up one of the presets. Got quite a crazy sound happening now. Let's load in one of the bass presets here. And now let's look at this filter, because we've got 2 filters on offer in Bengal. The first filter is, we've got an option of a low pass 2, which is more driven, a band pass filter, high pass, or a notch. And I love this, the sound of this as well. This is a comb filter, but rather than it being a separate filter, it actually used in conjunction with one of these 5 above, so you could have like the low pass 2 with the comb. I really like the sound of that comb filter, so that's really nice. You've got a second filter in here. This is a morph filter, and so this morphs from low pass, band pass, high pass to notch, and you've got cut off and resonance controls here. And this center box here, at the moment I've got it on phase, go to scope, and it gives you a readout of the waveform. You can see you start morphing the changes that are happening. If you started modulating, you see that, and that's pretty nice. And you have the scope there. You also have this phase, so your stereo imaging that's happening here gives you a readout of that, spectral analysis, and then some nice Bengal graphics. So this is quite a useful reference point here, I think. And then back to the filters, you've got your routing options here, so series or serial or parallel routing for the 2 filters. And then you've got some modulators over here, so you've got your envelope, and this is hardwired to the filter cutoff frequency. So this is your envelope amount here, so how much of this cutoff frequency has been sent to this envelope. And then you've got your envelope controls, are the same as these envelope controls here for the operators. You can edit the curve, ADSR, you can loop. You also have this velocity control here, so turn that on. And you've got some dynamic envelope happening, depending on note velocity. And we've also got this function sitting over here, so this is used as a modulator, and you can, using this here, you could say trigger it to the cutoff frequency. You hit play, plays through. You've got these breakpoints, so you can click and drag, move it around. You can loop this, or sustain loop it, or you can affect the time, so it moves through this function slower or faster. or you can randomize it, which is pretty cool. You have you check the randomize box, and then you hit the play, and it just changes the shape there, which affect the movement. And obviously that depends on how you're modulating. We'll come to this patch bay in a bit. You've got two LFOs, and these need to be patched in. So let's take the output of this LFO to the input of the filter frequency. Take that off. So our LFO, familiar controls really: sync, unsynced, free running. We've got our rate control here, re-trigger to re-trigger the phases. So you get a nice consistent LFO shape, and you can offset that phase using this control here. And then we've got some waveform selectors and a pulse width for the LFO wave. Two identical LFOs. And you've also got this sequencer here. This is really cool. So I'll take that modulation off. So you need to patch in a sequencer here for it to start taking effect. So you have to go take the run of the sequencer and patch it into the gate here on the MIDI. So when I play a note, you see it hits, we start to play there, and so if we play back, you know, we start to play through the sequence, and we could maybe take transpose and patch it to the pitch as well, and then you can start there we go. We need this turned on here, and then we start playing. So you can edit the note that's playing back. But what's pretty cool is as well, you can start, say, push these around. You've also got a scale over here, so you can actually scale the sequencer to a natural minor scale, harmonic minor, major, and I'm presuming it just forces the notes into that scale there. So you know, the root note of C, and it just forces those notes in, which is quite nice. Some other controls here as well: time, and some various forward, backwards and forwards, random, playback options, swing. You can change the length of the sequence. I've had quite a lot of fun playing around with this, and down here you can patch all of this, so you can start modulating various parameters of the sequencer in here for some really interesting results. Change the octave, velocity, add a bit of glide. It'd be quite fun. So yeah, that's a sequencer, the modulation section there. Lots of cool stuff on offer. And then you've got some of these, quite new to me really. I'm not so familiar with the modular stuff. If you are, you're probably more familiar with the lag scale and math, but using lag we can this smooths incoming signals, so you need to patch it into something here for it to have an effect. And then you have the rise and fall that can be linked or set independently, or you can set it to be linear there. We have a noise and random here, so we can randomize functions here. Of course we need to patch it in for random values on certain parameters that we're modulating, and scale here, so we can scale incoming data. And again, just and some scale values, minimum, maximum, some different modes, and some clip options. Need to start experimenting with some of this stuff a bit more, but I think we can get some really interesting stuff going. You've got this math control as well, so add, subtract, multiply data. Again, this is all quite new to me, so I'm still kind of getting familiar with it all really, but and this XY mixer as well. This is really cool. So you can start, say, sending something to trigger this XY mixer. So like this LFO can trigger the XY mixer, which then will in turn, we can send this to, say, the pitch, the filter frequency, or even we could also turn on LFO2 and direct this into the XY mixer. For some really interesting movements really. It's all about experimentation, I think, with this patch bay down here. So I've just been clicking and dragging stuff to modulate, but what you can also do is set modulation amounts here. If you go to this show mod button up here, so say if we're modulating the filter frequency with this LFO, we need to go from an output, one of these square outputs, to the circular inputs. So LFO is modulating that cutoff frequency. Go to show mod, and then you can set larger or smaller modulation amounts here, and you can actually, when you hit that show mod, it shows all your modulation amounts and it stays up. You can actually just hit shift on your keyboard. It doesn't stay up, but you can hit shift and just quickly edit the modulation amount, and then it kind of goes back. So yeah, you can increase or decrease modulation amounts there. And then the effects, I think the effects sound really good, some really powerful effects. So we've got delay here, so ping pong or synced, ping pong and or synced here, and then with the synced you can either go, you can get some dotted or triplet delays. This crush, love the sound of this. Instant kind of destruction of synths, but just in quite a nice, pleasing way. We've got some depth, distort, or you can go soft or hard. And again, just keep, when you start playing around with stuff, you look down here and you think, yeah, with the crush, you can actually patch in the depth and distortion, so you could start modulating that. Or increase the modulation amount. Some quite interesting movements, some interesting modulation on various controls there. We've got a reverb here called Space. Some familiar reverb controls, mix and size and what have you. Chorus. And some limiter and stereo width controls here. So get some really fat kind of sounding output using that limiter, and then we can add a bit of stereo imaging to our sounds. And this is where that phase comes in quite useful. Looking at the phase correlation of your synth sounds you're creating in combination with this stereo width control. And yeah, the final thing, this kind of global section here, we can set some glide, or we can set some global tune. Pitch bend, the amount of pitch bend being applied, you know, set to the pitch bend wheel. Up to plus 24 semitones. Pretty standard stuff down here. A pan control. Randomize, so random pan. And then this is useful here. So got monophonic. This is a bass patch, so it's monophonic. We can actually go to some unison voices and start spreading them. Some nice unison sounds. Oh, we can set to 8 voices here, so master volume as well. So some nice controls. So like I say, it's a first look. So some of this stuff still getting used to, especially a lag scale and math, and just the patching in and just what kind of sort of interesting modulations you can get using this patching section, the modular section down here. But some of my favorite features like the crush, I think is great, this sequencer and this comb filter, you know, they just make for some really fat sounds, and the ability to import your own wavetables as well is just going to be a massive plus for a lot of people. So we're going to be doing some more in-depth sound design stuff, looking at Bengal over the coming months. Bit of a first look, quite a long first look, because there's a lot to look at on this synthesizer. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, give us a shout. Thanks for watching.